Hi, my name's Howden, and thank you so much for enrolling into this Microsoft Power Platform Fundamentals course. So to begin with, who am I? My name's Howden, and I'm a Power Platform developer. I've got around 2 years of experience in the Power Platform, and I've been certified 5 times through Microsoft certifications. As you can see my credentials there at the bottom. I'm a self-starter, so I had no formal training within the Power Platform. I was given a business problem in a company I worked for and was told to go do some research for the different technology that we could use, and discovered the Power Platform in that process. So I started learning about it, I started engaging in projects that I thought would be beneficial for the company, and then that brings us here. So my goal is to empower yourselves and also your businesses with the Power Platform, because I understand how powerful it can be, and I would like to share that with you so you can see just how capable all of these systems together are. If you want to drop me a connection request on LinkedIn, I've got my name there. I aim to respond to every message on there, so please feel free to send me a message if you have any questions or anything along those lines. What you'll get in this course. So for starters, we'll go over the foundations of the Power Platform so you can conceptualize what the Power Platform is and also understand its business value. We'll also learn about some of the foundational components that make the Power Platform, such as data connectors and also the Microsoft Dataverse. So we'll learn about all of that in this section. Then we'll cover Power Apps, where you'll understand what Power Apps is and understand its business value. And then that will go alongside a practical example of how Power Apps works, so you can see what it looks like in action and also have a little tour of the business suite so you can understand what all the different links do. Then we'll cover Power Automate, which will follow a similar structure as Power Apps and the other components of the Power Platform. So we'll define what it is, we'll define its business value, and then we'll show a practical example. So the same goes for Power BI and also the bonus sections regarding Copilot Studio and also Power Pages. Throughout all of these different components, we'll have a live project within each section, and I call this the PAP project. So we'll work for a company called Power Inventory Limited, which has given us a business case that we have to solve with different components of the Power Platform. So I'll be working through that business case so you can understand how the Power Platform can practically be applied to a problem in a business and have a solution at the end of it. Then there'll be another bonus section covering Microsoft exam guidance, so you can get started in passing your first Microsoft exam with ease. And I'll also show you the method that I use to pass my Microsoft exams with only a week of study, so stay tuned for that. And then finally, there will be more bonuses coming soon, so please stay tuned for that also. I really do value your time and attention, so I want to make it clear to you what you won't get out of this course at this time of recording. So for starters, you won't get a deep understanding of the individual components within the Power Platform. So like I said, we're going to be doing a very high level preview, and the real benefit of this course is to understand how those concepts work together rather than understand individual components in immense detail. So for example, we're not going to be going into detail about Power Apps code or complex visualization techniques in Power BI. I will point you to resources where you can deepen that knowledge to be able to develop that understanding, but I just want you to keep in mind that this course is a very high level of the Power Platform components, and really its objective is to understand how they work together, understand what they do individually, of course, and also gain some practical experience. I also want to say here at the beginning, if you have any suggestions for sections I could add which would help you, I welcome all your feedback. And of course, if you want an immediate answer to your question, please leave it in the Q&A section or drop me a message on LinkedIn. Please know this could change as this course evolves, so I'll try my best to keep this section up to date. So of course, please keep an eye on the Q&A sections or follow my LinkedIn page where you'll probably get the most recent updates. So in this course, we've got 4 outcomes listed here that by the end of the course, I want you to have achieved. And if you've achieved these 4 things, then I know that I've done my job, at least to some degree. So for starters, it's to understand the Power Platform as a concept, so be able to explain it to someone else in a theoretical perspective, what it is, and the components that are within it. Secondly, it's to understand how the Power Platform components work together. So what's the business value of having Power Apps work with Power Automate and then that working with Power BI, for example. The third point is to get some hands-on experience with the Power Platform. So I want you to actually use your keyboard and mouse to write some formulas, create some visualizations, and just really build that knowledge through experience. I really do encourage, through action steps within the course, you actually going through and doing some stuff on your own. So yeah, to get some hands-on experience with the Power Platform is a key outcome of this course. And then finally, there on the right side, the fourth point is to get started studying for your first Microsoft certification. So we've got that bonus section at the end so you can understand what Microsoft certifications are and also their benefit if you want to take that journey on to become a Power Platform developer or just generally develop your knowledge of what the Power Platform is. Really any Microsoft certification, it doesn't even have to be surrounding just the Power Platform. So there is a lot of benefits of getting a Microsoft certification, and to start studying for one is a huge step forward. So that would be the final course outcome. So what does this course require? So currently this course requires no programming experience, but it would be helpful if you have some experience within technology, such as Excel, or even just working with computers day to day. However, it does require a work or school email address to access the Power Platform. If you do have general access to the Power Platform within your work, that would work as well. So the reason you're going to need this work or school email address is to actually sign up for the trials of the Power Platform if you don't have access to it within your work. And these trials will allow you to follow along and gain some practical experience of the Power Platform. How can you get the most out of this course? So I've got a few points up there, so we'll go through them. So for starters, there in the top left, we've got active learning. So I want you to actively participate in the course by practicing what you learn. For example, build your own apps, automate processes, and create reports that you might find useful so you can reinforce that understanding and bring it to your workspace. I'm sure I don't have to tell you that there's a big difference between active learning and passive learning, and if you watch this course without taking action, you won't see nearly as much benefit as you would if you did take action. So please actively learn. Then below that, we've got practice consistently. So regular practice is a key to mastering any skill, especially in technology. So dedicate time each day or week to work on personal projects and deepen your knowledge within the Power Platform. There in the middle, I've got it right bang center there because it's such an important one, but it's to ask questions. So I don't want you to hesitate when it comes to asking questions. If you encounter challenges or if you need any extra clarification, please use the Q&A sections or just drop me a message on LinkedIn and I'll respond as soon as I can. I really do want you to do well, so please don't hesitate to ask questions if you're struggling with something or if you'd like to see another section be added to this course. I've got there in the top right a bit of a meme, so keep calm and read the documentation. I feel like every developer needs to see that every now and then, but like I've said, this course will give you a very high level of the Power Platform components working together. So if you have any questions, like I said, please feel free to leave them in the Q&A, but I also strongly encourage you to read that Microsoft documentation. Microsoft documentation is very thorough and you might find the answer you're looking for in seconds rather than wait for me to respond, which might take a few hours. If you're struggling with something or just interested in a topic that hasn't been covered in as much detail as you would have liked, then please read the Microsoft documentation because it is covered in immense detail there. And then there in the bottom right, I've got stay updated. So the Power Platform is constantly evolving, so it's important to stay updated with new features and improvements by following Microsoft's updates and announcements. If you see something new that I haven't caught or updated in the course, please leave it in the Q&A sections and I'll be happy to add that in as soon as it's possible to do so. So with all that being said and introductions aside, I hope you enjoyed the process of learning the Power Platform with me. So without further ado, let's get started. Getting started with the Power Platform. So in this section, I want to lay the focus on understanding what the Power Platform is, as well as understanding the business value that the Power Platform can bring to your company. So you can kind of get a good grasp of the benefits and also its application and really get your mind thinking about how you could apply this to your business. So this is going to be the focus for this section. What is the Power Platform? I've got a definition up there of what the Power Platform is, but quite simply put, it's a suite of low-code and no-code tools developed by Microsoft that consists of several key components that allow you to build applications, streamline processes, visualize data, you name it, it can probably do it, and it allows you to do it without any extensive development or coding experience. It consists of several key components and they'll all be covered in this course. So you've got Power Apps, which allow you to build applications very quickly that interact with your data. You've got Power BI, which probably needs no introduction, but allows you to visualize your data and model data. So very in-depth processes within Power BI, but you can also get very simple with it. Then you've got Power Automate, which allows you to automate repetitive processes, anything from updating databases to notifying you when someone's uploaded something in a SharePoint site, for example. Then you've got Power Pages, which allow you to create custom business websites very, very quickly, and that interacts with the data within your organization. Then you've got Microsoft Copilot Studio, formerly known as Power Virtual Agents, allowing you to create chatbots very quickly that interact with your customers and stakeholders, really taking that pressure off your support team as well as the staff in your company in general. If someone has a simple question, they can go to the chatbot. If the chatbot can't figure it out, then they'll be sent to a live agent if you want to build that functionality in. So a lot of options with the chatbots. And then there at the bottom, you've got Microsoft Dataverse, which allows you to store any data within your organization. It's essentially a database, but the reason it's on here is because it interacts very seamlessly with all of these different components of the Power Platform. In the next section, we're going to be discussing the business value of the Power Platform and really get you thinking about how the Power Platform can benefit you as well as your organization. So stay tuned for that. Well, I thought a good question to ask is, why should I be interested in a Power Platform myself? For starters, the increasing demand for jobs. So there I've got a picture of IT Jobs Watch, and if I just go to that website, right here I filtered for Power Platform jobs, and as you can see, rank year on year, you've got a high increase of these different jobs within the Power Platform. So quite a high median salary, as well as rank year on year, always improving, always having increased demand. Very exciting field to be a part of right now, especially the way it's growing and improving every single day. And the next point we've got on there is remote working opportunities. So obviously since the pandemic, remote working has been so prominent, and people want to get into it much more, and they found out that they can do just as much work at home as they can do in the office. So plenty of remote working opportunities, plenty of contracting opportunities to simply work from your computer and not have to go into an office. So yeah, definitely very interesting on that front. Also versatility. This kind of shows the whole Power Platform space / the Azure services that go under it. So at the top you've got all of the Power Platform applications, including Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, Power Pages, Microsoft Copilot Studio. It says Power Virtual Agents on there, but please just see that as Copilot Studio. And then you've also got the deeper links to pro developers as well as DevOps. So you've got Dataverse, Microsoft Graph, SQL database. So a lot of different options. Even if you just learn Power BI, there's a career to be made just on that alone. So yeah, very exciting in terms of versatility. And that kind of goes on to my next point, which is the creativity of the Power Platform. Really engaging in the development process and building solutions from scratch. It's a very exciting place to be, and really engages those creative muscles that we all know we like to flex. So those are my points of why the Power Platform is interesting. I hope you agree, and please feel free to do your own reading on the trends and the benefits of finding a career in the Power Platform, because yeah, very exciting time to be a Power Platform developer right now. What's actually the Power Platform's business value? For starters, you've got rapid solution development. The Power Platform suite doesn't require any professional development. So rather than going to a professional developer, you can create solutions in 2 weeks rather than 2 months. Then secondly, you've got cost efficiencies. So again, it eliminates that need to hire a professional developer. I think a good example right now, especially nowadays, is the chatbots. Imagine the expense of hiring a professional developer to build you a chatbot from scratch. Probably very pricey, rather than you actually going into Microsoft Copilot Studio, developing a chatbot from scratch by yourself while using the data in your organization to drive those chatbots. So you've got full access to that, and it costs much less. Thirdly, you've got productivity through automation. So this is really focusing on Power Automate, doing manual processes such as sending emails, updating data, getting approval. You know, all of those things can be automated very, very quickly using Power Automate. So you gain a lot of productivity and a lot of your time back using that application. So that is a very powerful component of the Power Platform that we'll go into with a bit more detail. But two of the main benefits that I personally find is collaboration and user empowerment. So the Power Platform, I think for the first time in a while, really brings together general users, or citizen developers as we call them, and professional developers. It drives a lot of that collaboration between the two parties rather than there be a huge gap between them. Someone can build an application in Power Apps and say, right, this is the way I want it to look, this is the way, this is what I want it to do, and build very basic functionality. So that can come from a citizen developer, and then a professional developer can go into that, make the application a bit more robust. If they have a good grasp of the Power Platform, really, get all the data in the back end to work with the application, and really strike that collaboration between those two parties. Finally, you've got data-driven insight. The Power Platform flourishes on data. It's no secret that data is one of the main currencies in today's economy. It really takes all of that data and puts it into one place and allows you to use that data in those different applications. For example, if you collect data using Microsoft Power Apps, that can then be visualized using Power BI. And if they're all stored in the Dataverse, or if not, you could generate a very seamless process using those two different components of the Power Platform. So those are a few benefits. I thought it'd be nice to show you this website showcasing Microsoft Power Platform stories. Essentially what it is, it's a page showing all the success stories that Microsoft managed to collate from the different organizations and individuals who have found some success with the Power Platform. So it's a really cool website. If I scroll down here, you've got some quick links, some different stories. You've got the different filters, so you can filter by industry, by company size. For example, if I click on company size and it decides to work, you've got different organizations that have benefited from the Power Platform, and what that will do is it will link you to their stories. So you've got organizations fewer than 300 all the way over to organizations with more than 50,000 employees. So I've got one open here, and it's actually the EY success story, which is a really good read. I highly recommend it. And I think, you know, just doing some exploration here can really get your mind thinking about the possibilities it could have for your organization as well as your personal productivity. So highly recommend this page. It will be in the section notes, so it's a PDF copy at the end of this section, so please feel free to take a look at this now or whenever you finish this section. But yeah, highly recommend coming onto here and just reading a few articles, maybe going to company size, finding kind of roundabout the size of your company, clicking on one of these links and just having a quick read. So yeah, highly recommend, and just thought it'd be cool to show you this. In this section, we will introduce the foundational components of the Power Platform. These components include the data connectors, the AI builder, and Dataverse. So the objectives for this section, consequently, are to understand the Microsoft Dataverse, understand what data connectors are, understand what the AI builder is, and also we've got our first action step here, which is to create your free Power Apps account. So yep, without further ado, let's get into the next section. What is the Dataverse? So again, I've got an official definition there of what the Dataverse is, so feel free to take a note of it. But basically it's a database that has a deep integration with Power Platform tools. So developed by Microsoft, and obviously as a result has a deep integration with all of those tools we discussed: Power Apps, Power BI, Power Automate, and works seamlessly within them. There are two available options in Dataverse. So we've got standard tables and we've got custom tables. So standard tables are essentially just tables that Microsoft have predefined out of the box for you. So they have predefined columns ready for use. So an example of a standard table is a contact table, which has many different fields for first name, last name, mobile number, and anything relating to a contact or a person. That would be an example of a standard table. Custom tables are tables created by the user. So you go into the Dataverse, you go into create a table, and you create your own table. It's not one that you use out of the box. There's two available table options in the Dataverse, standard and custom tables. So that's a key thing to keep in mind. I thought it'd be useful to get a visual representation of how the tables actually look. Here's an example of a standard table. It's called account. So within any Microsoft Dataverse environment that you create, the account table will be included at this time of recording. So if I click onto here, you've got these predefined columns that Microsoft have created for us. So I can come into here and use any of these columns, use this table out of the box without any work to do on my end in terms of data modeling. Yeah, any columns you need for a specific account would be in here for you. So that's all done out of the box. Now, if I wanted to create a custom table, a table that needed to fit my needs, for example, if I needed to create a table to track inventory within my business, I would select new table, add columns and data, and what I could do is I could come into here and start building my table. So I put inventory for me. I can press save, and then I can come into here and edit the different columns and start modeling my table. So that's the difference between a custom table, and a standard table. So what are data connectors? A really good analogy that I like is data connectors act as a bridge between your data source and any sort of Power Platform tool like Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI. You've got a really good visual representation there of kind of how data connectors work. So you've got kind of the bridge here. So to explain it step by step, you've got your data sources. So you've got these in different places like spreadsheets, databases, web apps. Each of these count as a data source. Then you've got your data connectors, so almost like an adapter who understand the data sources and they help you get data from these data sources regardless of where they're stored. And then you've got the different Power Platform tools on the other side of the bridge that the data connectors help create that pathway to. So Power Apps, Power Automate, or Power BI. So that's the role that data connectors play in the Power Platform. So what is the AI Builder? The AI Builder is a tool in the Power Platform that helps you optimize business processes using the power of AI. AI is everywhere now, and the Power Platform definitely gets its fair share of it. So with the AI Builder, you've got two options. You've got ready-made models. So these are prepackaged solutions for common business problems, so processing an invoice and reading business cards. So these are ready-made. And then you also have custom models. So if you have a unique business problem that needs a special solution, you can teach the AI Builder how to do that. So an example of this is prediction, which predicts future outcomes based on historical data that you train it on, but you have to train it on that data. So currently you can use the AI Builder in Power Apps and Power Automate, which we will get into. Two examples of AI Builder in action is invoice processing to take out key details and update a spreadsheet hands-off. So what you can do is you can combine Power Automate and the AI Builder to process an invoice, so the AI Builder can take all of the data from that invoice and you can use Power Automate to populate that into a spreadsheet. And then you've also got text analysis to determine the sentiment from customer feedback. So you can analyze text using the AI Builder, put that in a visualization for you to see how customers are reacting to certain aspects of your business. So to see where the AI Builder is actually located, I'm in the Power Apps suite, and the way I've got on here is using the URL make.powerapps.com. Don't worry if you don't have a Power Apps account yet. We'll get into that in the next part of this course. So you can get the Power Apps account built, and then you can kind of follow along with me from that point forward. So here on the left side, we've got the AI Hub. So if I click onto here, you've got everything AI. If I'm being honest, I haven't clicked deeply into these links, but I'm sure if you want to learn more, you can watch videos, as you can see, and you could do some reading up also in this section. But to focus on the models that we just discussed, if we select here, as you can see, you've got the extract information from invoices. So you've got the invoice processing pre-built model there. And clicking onto here, it's very intuitive, gives you a good idea of what you're going to be creating and also documentation on how to create it. So if I click on this, you've got a nice detailed documentation on how to actually use the AI model. So just step by step, this is how you do it. To use the pre-built model, you can select this button here and you can either use it in a flow or use it in an app. And clicking one of these will open up that application or flow and integrate this model within it. So a lot of interactivity with the Power Platform there. So that was a pre-built model. As you can see, there's also custom models here that you're going to have to train yourself. So you've got prediction, and obviously you're going to have to put in your own data for that to be trained to understand what it should actually look for. But same thing with the invoice processor. You've got documentation options here to have a look into that. An in-depth AI Builder tutorial isn't something I'm going to give you in this course, but there's plenty of documentation out there that you can go in. So if it's something that sounds interesting to you, please take a look. In this section, I'm going to show you how to create a free Power Apps developer account so you can join along with me when I'm developing some of the applications within this course. So one prerequisite to actually do this, you're going to need a work or school email address. But this will give you a free instance of Power Apps as well as a Microsoft Dataverse environment so you can start experimenting and learning from there. So if you go into a link in the section notes, you should be taken to this screen. This is the Power Apps homepage. You can take a guided tour or you can press try for free at the top. As you can see, you can scroll down, see all the product features, the use cases, do some reading on some of the reports that Microsoft has put out there. as well as you can see the Power Apps pricing. So this is the section that concerns us. You've got Power Apps Premium, and then obviously you've got the developer plan. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on here, and this will open up another link. And then from here, you can see you want to be selecting Build Apps, Start Building Apps. And then this will take you to this page where it says you've selected Microsoft Power Apps for Developer. So it's here where you enter your work or school email address, and then you can create your account after confirming your details. After creating your Power Apps developer account, you should be taken to this screen, which is the Power Apps suite, containing all those sections that we saw from the AI builder. If you don't manage to see that screen, then simply go into your browser and type in make.powerapps.com. And then that will prompt you to sign in with the account that you made, and then it will take you to that Power Apps suite. In this section, we'll be discussing Microsoft Power Apps. The section objectives for this are to understand what Power Apps are and why it's useful, understand how Power Apps functionality works, so we'll give you a practical example of how it actually works in practice. And we'll introduce the first part to the putting it all together PIAT project. It's a project that I put together so you can see how all the different functions of the Power Platform work together. So rather than just see a bunch of practical examples from different places, you can see them all be put together within one case study in one project. And then the action step for this section is to connect your first gallery to data and add capabilities to view the data on another screen. You'll understand what all of those words mean definitely in the next few slides. For now, that's all you need to know. What is Microsoft Power Apps? Power Apps is a tool for creating custom apps without needing professional code. You can connect your app to data sources like Excel, Dataverse, and SharePoint to gather and display information. So Power Apps has huge access to different data sources. So these are just a few, but it's one of the most versatile Power Platform components in terms of data sources. Once you've built your app, you can use it on your devices or share it with others in your organizations. It's very seamless to deploy your apps, especially if you're all in a Microsoft Azure cloud environment. It is very seamless to upload your apps to Teams and get some of the people around you using it also. And the last thing to know are Power Apps are created using a declarative low-code language called PowerFX. So that's how the formulas are working in Power Apps. We'll go into formulas later during the practical example, but that's all you need to know for now. There are two types of Power Apps. You've got Canvas apps and you've got model-driven apps. Canvas apps are highly customizable applications where you design the user interface from scratch. You place the elements in a drag and drop feature, which we'll go into in the practical example. You've got full design flexibility, and they're very visually appealing. If you're thinking more of a mobile app or a tablet app, Canvas apps are definitely the way to go. So you've also got model-driven apps. So these are built around tables in the Dataverse, and the user interface is automatically generated based on your data structure within the Dataverse. And if you're thinking of more standardized data management, such as CRM or HR systems, model-driven apps are the way to go. And obviously you can pull in different components for the Power Platform, such as Power BI visualizations, as well as Power Automate flows. For now, I wouldn't worry too much about the way they work. We'll go over that in another part of this section. But for now, just understand that there are two different types of Power Apps, Canvas app and model-driven apps. Power Apps are useful for a number of reasons. So for starters, no professional coding required. You're saving quite a lot of costs as well as time. So you've got rapid application development as well. So it's very easy and quick to develop Power App, especially simple applications. And I'll show you how to do that using the Copilot Studio and using some of the AI features also. And of course, you've got seamless integration with Microsoft tools and of course the Power Platform. So SharePoint, Dataverse, Power BI, Excel, all of that connection is very seamless within Power Apps. Huge benefits there, especially on a Azure cloud. Right now we're in the Power Apps suite, and to get to here, what you want to do is type in make.powerapps.com here in the URL, and it should take you to this screen, providing you do have the credentials and the license to get in. So if you made that developer account from the last section, you'll be able to sign in with those credentials. So just a quick tour on the left-hand side here. Right now we've got the home section, which is almost a collection of the other sections, just showing you a main interface of the things that Power Apps thinks you might want to see. For the starters here, taking a big portion of the screen is the Copilot feature. It's a very exciting feature. Essentially, you can build an app using natural language. So just describing what you actually want from the app, what you want it to do, what table you want it to work with. You can type that in and it will generate you an app. It's really cool. You've also got other ways that you can create an app. So you can start with data, start with a page design, start with an app template, So I'll show you what those app templates look like. Microsoft provide a number of app templates. If you have a business problem and it's a general business problem that Microsoft are prepared for, then you can use one of their templates. And over here, you've got learning, and I'll go into that section soon. So if we move up here and press create, here is where you can create your app. So as you can see, you can start from a blank app, which will simply just give you a blank canvas to work from. You've got Dataverse, so you can start from a Dataverse data source, SharePoint, Excel, SQL. So you've got those options, and you've got a couple more options here at the bottom also. Here you can also use those AI models that we discussed in a previous section to integrate with the AI Hub. You can create websites to support your app. You can create chatbots, and you can also deliver micro apps within Microsoft Teams. Scrolling down, you can start from a template. So this is what I was talking about when you need an app for a common business problem. So asset checkout, fundraiser, cost estimator, you've got help desks here also. So you've got all of these really cool features that you can simply just open up and start building from. So if we explore this learn section also, here you can really level up your skills in Power Apps. Anything that you can think of, you can probably learn it from this section using Microsoft documentation, videos, and you can also filter it by levels. So you've got beginner, intermediate, advanced. So if I just go to beginner for now, you've got these simple learning paths, and if you scroll down, you've got some forums, and you've also got some videos that you can learn from. So if you're looking to build your knowledge in Power Apps, really try and deepen that knowledge, then this would be the place to go. Looking over here on the left also, we've got apps. So here is a list of the applications that you create. So this will be Canvas apps and model-driven apps. Then if you go into tables, you've got that list of Dataverse tables available to you that we discussed in a previous section. And then if you go into flows, you have direct access to Power Automate, which we'll get into in a later section. Then you've got solutions, which essentially act as wrappers for any object you create within the Power Platform environment. So that includes flows, Canvas apps, model-driven apps, anything along those lines. You can package that up into a solution. If you want to deepen your knowledge in the Power Platform, I highly recommend reading up on solutions. Right now, it's not in the scope of this course, but I highly recommend reading up on it and deepening your knowledge a little bit more. And also you've got these other options such as chatbots, websites, and AI Hub that we have covered. Chatbots and websites will come in a later part of the course. Now we understand what we're looking at when we look at the Studio interface. I think it would help to create a practical solution. So now we know what the Studio interface looks like. We're going to create a Canvas app. All Power Apps need a data source to connect to. So what we're going to do is create a data source within the Dataverse so we can connect that to our Canvas app and generate a seamless process for it. So if we go into tables here on the left, we're going to create a custom table from scratch so then we can connect that to the Canvas app. So we go in here, new table, add columns and data. You can also describe the table using that Copilot feature. But right now we're just going to add columns and data, create it manually. So now you've got the interface to create a table. So here we're going to rename the table and we're going to call it customer. We're going to save that. And then now we can modify the columns. So right here, we're going to change this to customer name. We'll leave that as required. We can select the data type, which we'll leave that as text for now. Then we can add a new column and we'll call this customer type. We can select that data type. We'll make this a choice and we want it as a choice, not a yes, no. We'll keep this as required. You can't select multiple choices, and then we can add some labels for the choice. We'll select no default choice and then we'll select save. Now we'll create two more columns. So we'll create one for age, change the data type to number, whole number. We'll leave the format as it is. You've got these options also. We'll leave this, we'll put this as required. We'll save this. Now the date of birth. So now we've created this table. It would be helpful to have some test data in here. So I'll just populate that now. I'm just going to remove this column because it doesn't correlate with the age. So now we've populated that data, we can go into create. And that will create the table for us. So then we have our data source to connect to the application. Now it takes you into the table view where you can see the data that you've populated, and you've also got a number of options, including looking into the data properties like column, relationships, keys, data experiences, forms, views, and charts and dashboards, which we'll go into in a later section when we cover model-driven apps. And then we've also got customization such as business rules and commands, which is out of scope for this course. So now we've got our data source, we can come here on the left, select create. And since it's stored in the Dataverse, we're going to press start from Dataverse to create a 3-screen app. You can also watch a video to help you through this. We're not going to do that now. We'll select Dataverse. It will require us to form a connection. So right now it's just using my account. It will ask us to choose a table. So we're going to choose the customers table. And then we can press connect. And what this will do is it will build us a 3-screen app which allows us to interact with that table. So now that's been created, as you can see, you've got a 3-screen app here. If I just close this, you've got the browse screen, the detail screen, and the edit screen. The detail screen showing the details from the user that's selected from the browse screen. Then you've got the edit screen, which allows you to edit that specific record and then save that into the Dataverse. So if we just show what that will look like, we can come here on the right, preview, let's say Frederick Gallagher. So now we're on the detail screen, and then I want to edit this. So someone's made a mistake and he's actually 47 and not 43, and the customer type is finance. So what I can do is I can submit this item, and what that will do is that will feed back into the data source and upload it in real time. So if I come into here, close this, save the application, go back, leave, go into tables, custom, customer, and then as you can see, Frederick Gallagher has been updated to finance, as well as his age updated to 47. So going back into the app, if I go into apps, commands, edit, it will take me back into editing the application. And we're back into the Canvas app and we can start editing from here. So you've also got other options within this app. You can search for the user. So if I just type in Howden, it will search me that user. If I type in Jack, it will work in that way also. You've got refresh, you've got sorting features, and then you've got creating an item. So that was a practical example of how you use a Canvas app. Stay tuned for the next episode where I will show you how to create a model-driven app. So now we've seen how to create a Canvas app, I'm going to show you how to create a model-driven app. For starters, go into create here on the left, then press blank app, and then come into blank app based on Dataverse, since model-driven apps are only based on the Dataverse. You can press create from here. You can give it a name, so I'll just put customer management. I'll select create, and it will load up that app for you. So it says start by adding a page to your navigation. So from here, we'll select new. We can select the Dataverse table, we can select dashboard, we can select URL, we can select web resource, and we can select a custom page. Now a custom page essentially is a Canvas app embedded into a model-driven app. So there's quite a lot of functionality that you can make work with that. Also, for right now, we're going to press Dataverse table. Next, it's going to ask us what table we want it to connect to. So we're going to put customers. We'll select show in navigation and select add. And then from this point forward, we can see those specific customers that we'd added in the previous episode of creating those Canvas apps. Now, if I select one of these records, I have a more detailed view on that record. As you can see, it's much more data-driven rather than user-focused. But I can change any of these options the same I would a Canvas app. So I can press save and close also. If I decided, no, he's actually 50, we're having a huge problem with this customer, save and close, that will be updated here in the age. So model-driven apps work with many different components, but 3 of the main ones are tables, views, and forms. So currently this is a view. When I click onto a record and I see this screen, this is a form. And of course, this is all connecting to a table in the back end. So those are the 3 main components. So if I want to save this and I wanted to edit the form, for example, when I click onto the form, I've decided I don't want to see this owner field and I want to move this age up here on the top right. So what I'll be able to do is come into here, select edit, on the main form. And now I have a very simple drag and drop interface to change that form. So I can move this over to the right. Can move this over to the right as well. And no, I decided I don't want the owner. And then what I can do is select hide, save and publish. So if I want to go back, I'm now in my model-driven app. And if I'm to open a form, those changes have been made. So the age has moved here to the top. I can edit that also from here. And then the owner field has been hidden. So how would I edit this view if I decide I don't want to see created on, for example? I'd come in here on the left. I can select edit on the view. Then it's a simple drag and drop interface, the same as the forms. I can select created on, remove, and that will take that away. And then I can save and publish. And then I can row back. And then now from here, I don't have that created on field. So that's a very basic overview of the model-driven apps working. If you want to do some more research into model-driven apps, I'll leave some good resources in the section notes. So please take a look at that if you want to deepen your knowledge or if you think this could provide some value to your business. So the Power Platform has a lot of different components that all work together in different ways. Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, just to name a few. So with all these different components, I thought it would be very beneficial to understand how they all work together. Introducing the P-App project. In the putting it all together, or the P-App project, we will go through a business case in which we work for a small retail business called Power Inventory Limited that wants to improve its inventory management process. The business currently tracks inventory manually using paper-based forms and spreadsheets, which leads to errors and inefficiencies. Your task is to create a solution using the Power Platform to streamline the inventory management process. You need to remove paper-based systems and allow employees to enter and update inventory data on a mobile device. So for that, we will use Power Apps. You will need to automate notifications when an inventory item has been added. For that, we'll use Power Automate. Then we need to monitor current inventory levels using a Power BI report. So for that, we will use Power BI. Then we need to develop a chatbot to answer questions from stakeholders. For that, we'll use Microsoft Copilot Studio. And finally, develop a website integrated with a chatbot to share inventory insights and ideas with stakeholders. And for that, we will use Power Pages. So I hope you stay with me for the first part of the P-App project, where we'll be creating an app to remove paper-based systems and allow employees to enter and update inventory data. For this first part of the P-App project, we're going to use Power Apps to remove paper-based systems and allow employees to enter and update inventory data on a mobile device. The perfect candidate for this would be a Canvas app. So now in the Power Apps Studio, what we're going to need is a table to store the inventory data on. So if I go into tables here on the left, and I press new table, instead of add columns and data like we pressed last time, we're going to describe the table using Copilot. So right here, what you can do is you can tell Copilot what you want the table to do, and it will build you one based on natural language. So if I say, build me a table that tracks inventory for my business, enter. And there we go. We've got product ID, product name, quantity, price, category. So that's perfect. And then we can just press create here in the bottom right. And just like that, we've got a data source built in seconds. So for category, what we're going to do is edit this column. And instead of labeling them category 1, 2, and 3, we're going to call them so we'll turn that into business required to make sure that's required, and then we can save those choices. So those should update in the data source. As you can see, those records have updated. Then the price is fine. The product ID, we're going to make it required as well. So business required, we'll save that. Price, we'll make that also business required. We'll leave the base how it is. So now we have our data source to store the inventory. Now we've got the data source built, we're going to create the Canvas app from blank. So if we're going to create here on the left, blank app, and then we want a blank Canvas app. We want that as phone, and then we can call this, and then we can simply press create. And that should build us a blank canvas. So as you can see, this Canvas app has many different sections. So let's go into them very briefly. So here in the top bar, you've got your undo button, your paste, your insert. Here you can insert different items into the canvas. So for example, if we say, I want a text label, that can be done from there. I'll delete that for now. You've got add data, so you can add different data sources into your app. You can create a new screen. So here you've got some templates, and you can also just have a blank layout. Then you've got the themes, so you can start changing the themes, and all of your items will change depending on what theme you've selected. So if I press, we'll make it this red. So the theme will adjust to that. Then we've got the background color. We can alternate these. Then the background image, so you can have a background image within the app, and then you've got the application settings, so you can provide a description, change the app icon, background fill, and then all of these different settings also, including upcoming features and support. Here on the right side, you've got your status, so your editing, you can share, then you can also use the app checker to see if there's any issues with the application, you can add comments, you can preview the app, you can save the app, and also download a copy or save with version notes, and you can also publish the app into your environment. So if we just get a text label here, type in test for demonstration purposes, I can show you how the formulas work. So here you've got the formula bar. So you've got your properties here on the left. So as you can see here, we've just edited the text property, which indicates what the text box actually has within it. So you've got the word test. If I delete this, it will reflect. If I type in something that isn't a string, it will throw me an error because it needs to be within a string, like this. So you've got a number of different properties here that you could go through. If you want a more detailed insight on how the properties work, there's an A to Z list that I've left in the section notes for you. So please take a look at that. And you've got all of the different controls and all the different properties and their role within Power Apps. So if you ever have a problem, you can simply select here, and then it will tell you how these properties work. So those are the properties here on the left. And then on the right of those properties, we've got the formula bar, which you can dictate what those properties have within them. So like we said here, within the text, we just dictated in the formula bar that we want this to say test, but we can have anything in here, of course. We can put 1, 2, 3. We'll just put that back to test. So you can dictate the way that those properties work within your app. Now, of course, like Excel, Power Apps has many different formulas, so the app can be very customizable. There's quite a lot of these formulas, so I will leave a link in the section notes to the formula reference. If you ever want to do something and you don't know if it's possible, then I definitely take a look at this formula reference, have a good glance over it, see if there's anything on here that you can use. Then here on the left, you've got your different views. So you've got your tree view, which, as you can see, you've got the screen name, and then you've also got any items within that screen. So as you can see here, that label, which should say test, and now does, has its own name. So we can just rename this into test label, and then we can change the screen name to test screen. So you can make all of those alterations in the tree view. Then you've got insert, which is the same tab as it is up here. So you can insert all of the different items from Power Apps. You've got data. As we mentioned before, Power Apps all works on data. It thrives on data. So when you're trying to have those data sources within the app, you can do it from here. And you can see you've got all these different data sources, and you can connect to many different ones also. You've got media, so any videos or photos. You've got Power Automate for automation. So if you want your app to trigger a new flow, it will need to be included within here. Then you've got variables, which work as normal programming variables do. You can bounce them around the different screens and make them hold data, make them control different functions. Then you've got advanced tools, so you can open tests, and you can also monitor the activity within the application. And then you've got search, which you can search for different formulas and items within your apps. Then here on the right, you've got the properties panel. So if I select this label, you can see all of these different properties show up for the label. So it's more of a simpler view of this property up here. So rather than change the text in the formula bar, I can just change it here on the left and just put testing in caps, select enter, and then it will change, and it will also change up here. So a more seamless view here on the right. And also you've got these advanced settings, so anything that isn't considered basic, would be included here also. So now I'm going to start building out the app. For starters, we need a screen to show the different inventory that we have stored in the table. To do that, firstly, we're just going to model out the way the app looks. So add a text label here. I'll move this over to the top, make it a bit bigger, and then I'll call this title label. I'll rename the screen name to home screen also. Then what I can do here is double click and then just type in inventory management home. I don't really like how close it is to the left, so what I can do is I can add padding left, and I can make this a bit bigger. 20 will do just fine. There we go. Now we can save that. So we can make this semi-bold also, and we'll change our theme as well, so I'll change it to this blue. So now we've got this built out. I'll change the background color to this light blue, and then change the text color to white. And then now from here, we need a way to display the data within the app. So now we do this using a gallery. So if I press insert vertical gallery, that will load me in a nice gallery here. I can drag this down. And what a gallery is it will display your data and allow you to interact with it in the Power App. So it wants us to choose a data source. So here we're going to use our table called inventory tracking. We selected it, it's loading. And there we go. It's simply connected to the table. So each item here you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are all items in the table. And depending on how many items you have, all of those will load here. I don't want an image, so I'm going to change this to title and subtitle. Yep, that will be good. And then I can rename the gallery to, so that's perfect. So if I press preview, now we've got the gallery working. So each item is being selected. But unfortunately, when we select the arrow to go and view the item, we have no functionality or screens for it to be viewed. So we're going to need to create that now also. So I press new screen, add blank, and then turn this into the view screen. And then what I need to do to be able to view the data is add a form. So if I press insert and I just type in form, I recommend using an edit form. A form also requires data. So what this will do is it will pull the different fields from the data source into this application. So my data source is currently set to none, but I want it to be the inventory tracking. And there we go. So we've got each field from the inventory tracking on here. So we don't want the created on fields, so we can just delete that. And then we've got all the rest. If we select on fields here on the left, we can reorganize the way the fields are. So I want price a bit higher. I want product name to be just below product ID, and quantity and category to be switched around. I'll make this a bit shorter. And then what I will do is borrow this label, just paste it here, move it to the top, and just rename this to view. And then I'll change this form name as well, best practice. There we go. Now we've got that selected. Unfortunately, when we select the buttons, they're still not working and nothing's being selected here. So the reason for that is on these buttons, there's nothing on select of these buttons here in the property to actually navigate it to the next screen. So what we need to do is we need to create a formula to navigate. So if we use this formula bar here, instead of select parent, we say navigate, open bracket, to the view screen, and then comma, and I want the transition to be fade. Then I can format this text, so we've got that nice code view, easier to read. I can press save, and then now when I preview, it will take me into the inventory management view. But now when I select view, there's no item to display. And the reason for that is there's nothing to link my gallery to my form. So we need to create a variable to do that. So what I need to do is come into one of these records, and right now they're locked. So that just means that when you pull in fields from a form, they're usually locked to stop you from breaking it and changing it. But for now, we're going to unlock it, and we'll do that with all of them, just so we have that for reference. And then if I go back to the home screen, we need to create a variable to show what we select on this screen on the next screen. If we select that arrow again, unselect, I want you to set, which sets a variable var item. So right now what we've done is we've stored the item that's selected into var item. Now we need a place for that variable to live. So if we go into view screen, we go into the form properties, and instead of data source, we swap this to item, and then we can have var item. So now if I go back into the home screen, I press play, and I select the product, it shows me that product. So unfortunately I have no way to go back, so I'm going to add that functionality in now. So I'll insert a button. This back icon should do fine. I'll pop it here. And we also want to anticipate to edit the information, because this is just the view screen. We don't want the form mode to be edit. So since we don't want this form mode to always be edit, we can go into the default mode property, and instead of form mode.edit, we can change this to form mode.view. And what that will do is it will switch it into a view form, just like that. So if we go back into the home screen and we select a record, it will show us a view rather than an edit. So we want this back button to work, so on select, just go back. So now it will take us back to the screen that it was on previously. And if I select this item, it will update just like that. Perfect. So I want this pen icon to allow this form to be edited. So on select of this item, I wanted to take it to another screen where you can edit and save the record. The way I'm going to do that is duplicate this screen, and instead of view screen, I can name it to edit screen. And then instead of this icon, what I can do is change it into a save. And then I can change this icon into a cancel. Just like that. Now I'm back on the view screen. On select of this item, navigate me to the edit screen. See if that's working. Perfect. Now I'm on the edit screen. On this edit screen, we've got the default mode of the form set to view. So let's change that to edit. Just like that. So now if I go back and test, you can see it's going to be edited for us. And then if we're canceling, what we're going to do is just go back. There we go. Working perfectly. And I've just realized the bug. So we're going to need to change this to navigate to the home screen rather than back. So the reason this is a bug is because now we've added functionality to go to the edit screen. So if we select the edit screen and then the back button, initially we wanted it to go back to the view screen, but now if a user selects the edit button, the back button is going to go back to the edit screen rather than the view screen, because that was the last page that we originally came from. So now we have to change that functionality from saying back to just say navigate to the home screen. There we go. So starting from the top, you can come in here, view an item, you can edit that item, or you can cancel. So we don't have that save button working, so let's get that working also. So on select of the save button, what you can do is use submit form, and then what we're going to want to do is submit our inventory form. We'll rename this to edit. So on select of this, submit form inventory form edit. So what that will do is it will write any changes into the data source. And now we've got an issue where if someone comes in here to edit and they've made a change, for example, change this product ID to 2, then they go back, the original data source's product ID is 1, but because they've made the change on this screen, it still shows us 2. So we need this to reset. So when someone selects cancel, what will also happen is it will reset form, inventory form, edit. Just like that. So if we go back, then we press edit, as you can see, it sorted that issue out for us. So now we're also going to want this form to submit. So let's see that testing. So let's go back. Let's say we want to change this number 2 record, product name 2. We don't want it to be called that. We want it to be called chair. And if I select submit, that has now been written to the data source. So I'm now in the inventory tracking table, and as you can see, that's been written to the data source directly. But unfortunately, there was no sign of confirming that, and we're still on this screen where someone can cancel and submit again, so it might cause some confusion and probably some errors. So what we're gonna want is a success screen. So when a user submits a change, they'll be able to see that their submission was successful. So we come into here, create a new screen, and we'll call this success screen. Then we can insert a check badge, pop that in here, and we can make that color green. We'll have a text label below it, and under the text label we'll put form success. Make this a bit smaller, move this in the middle. So when a user comes on this screen, they're going to want to be automatically taken back into the home screen. So what we can do is insert a timer. We can make this 2 seconds long. Let's make sure that's working. If we preview, select 1, 2, and then it stops. Perfect. And if we go into the properties and we find auto start, we can set this to true. This will automatically start, and then we want that when the timer ends. So on timer end, so when the timer ends, navigate me back to the home screen and give me a nice fade effect as well. There we go. And then we can come into this items visible property, change this to false, so that would make it disappear, and then we've got that sorted. So if we go to the home screen, and for example we want to change number 2 again, as you can see it's called chair. We want to change this to table. We need to make this on select, submit form, and also navigate to the success screen. So as you can see, we've named it table, save, form success. There we go. So what if a user wants to create a new inventory item? We can select insert, and then we can select add. Put this here in the top. And then what we can do is duplicate one of these screens. So in the edit screen, duplicate this, and then we can have new screen. So from here, we want to change this to new. And then obviously we've got the data source being inventory tracking, and we've got the item as var item, but we don't want that. So we can get that out. So we've just got a nice fresh form. On cancel, we don't want to reset the other form. So that's been set properly. So inventory form new, and that should be changed. Yep, reset form, inventory form new. On select, it submits that form, and also navigate to the success screen, just like that. So if I come on here, on select, navigate to new screen, we can press add, and we've got no item to display. Now why is that? So the reason for that is up here in the default mode, we've got form mode.edit. We actually want to change this to form mode.new. So now if I go into the home screen, we can see we've been brought to a brand new form, and we can add that product ID, product name, price, category, and quantity. So now we have a working app. It's only taken 10-15 minutes, and users can interact with the data source from a mobile device. So that's done very quickly. I understand I've glanced over quite a few subjects, so please use the section notes to develop some of your understanding, and feel free to ask any questions within the Q&A sections. So here is your action step. Connect your first gallery to data and add capabilities to view the data on another screen. So as you saw with the PApp project, if you add that gallery in the first screen, how do you make the data viewable on another screen? If you can develop that, then you've passed this action step. I'll see you in the next section where we're going to be introducing Power Automate. In this section, we will cover Power Automate. So in this section, firstly, we want to understand what Power Automate is and why it's useful. Then we're going to explore the Power Automate suite so you can see all of the options available to you. Then we're going to engage in the PApp project, the second part of the PApp project, continuing from the Power Apps that were created in the first part. And then you'll do an action step where you'll create a flow that notifies you when you get a negative email. What is Power Automate? So Power Automate is designed to help people automate repetitive tasks and streamline processes without the need for extensive coding. So if you think of anything that you spend an extensive amount of time on that's quite repetitive, such as sending emails, approvals, populating Excel spreadsheets, Power Automate will be able to automate that process for you, making it much easier for you to actually do the work that matters. So workflows can connect to various applications and services, such as Twitter and Microsoft Dataverse, using data connectors. So there's various data connectors that you can use with Power Automate, so you can link up all of the different tools and applications you use to Power Automate and streamline processes within one unanimous application. So what's some examples of data connectors in Power Automate? So here's a very busy list of Power Automate data connectors. I've highlighted some of the key ones, so Google Drive, Excel, Power BI, and Power Apps. But as you can see, you've got a lot of services that people use on a day-to-day, such as OneNote, MailChimp, and a whole load of others. If you want a list of up-to-date data connectors, then I highly recommend going on this website. I'll leave this in the section notes for Power Automate, but this gives you a good overview of all the connectors that are available within Power Automate. So you've got some popular ones, Dropbox, notifications, Google Calendar, and then you've got some recently added ones. And then we've got all the connectors. So this is alphabetical. I'd have a quick look at this to see if Power Automate is something you can bring into your processes and your business. It would be very useful for you to understand the different flows that are available to you, because different flows do different things within Power Automate. Here we've got a list of the flows available in Power Automate, and we're going to quickly go through them, explaining what they are, their benefits, and what they do. So starting with automated cloud flow. So this is a cloud flow that's triggered by a designated event. So they're automatically triggered when a specific event occurs. An example of this would be sending an email to a team when an item in SharePoint is updated. That would be automated because Power Automate is looking for that moment where something is updated in SharePoint, and then it will automate that email. Instant cloud flows, on the other hand, are triggered manually. So if you think of a button, they're triggered by user action. An example of this is a button for gathering and compiling data for a report. The third flow we'll cover is a scheduled cloud flow. So you choose when and how often the flow runs. These are flows designated to run at certain times. An example of this is generating a weekly summary of sales data. If you automate an email to come every Friday morning, the Cloudflow will know that's a schedule and it will handle that for you. A desktop flow automates processes on your desktop environment. So these flows automate processes on your desktop. So an example of this is automating the process of extracting data from PDF invoices and entering it into an Excel spreadsheet. So if you think about that process, it's using different applications, it's using PDFs, and that can all be automated within your desktop to do that. And the last flow we'll cover is Process Advisor. So this helps you analyze and optimize the processes that you have in your business. So an example of this is analyzing the process of handling customer service requests, identifying the steps that take the most time, and using that information to make the process better. In this course, the focus will be on automated cloud flows for simplicity, and from my experience, it's the most popular one that's used in businesses, so the focus will be here. Why is Power Automate useful? So obviously, the main benefit is automation of repetitive tasks, saving you a lot of time and probably a lot of money, so you can focus on the important things. The second benefit I have here is a huge range of data connectors allowing automation for a lot of processes, most processes in your organization. If you're using any external application, Power Automate has some interactivity with those applications, so a huge range of data connectors, and obviously the last one being seamless integration with Microsoft tools and of course the Power Platform. So Excel, Dataverse, SharePoint, Power BI, Power Apps, anything covered in this course, Power Automate has seamless integration with. So that is a key benefit of using Power Automate. When you open up your Power Automate suite, you have a variety of different options. So I'm going to break them down simply at a very high level so you can understand what you're looking at here. When you're in the home screen, the first thing that you can see, and it's quite a universal thing throughout the Power Platform, is a Copilot section. You can describe in natural language how you want your automation to work. So if I click onto here, you'll get some examples. So for every item in a SharePoint list, send an email. For every day, send an email for each SharePoint list item, and you could type in natural language and it should create a good framework for you to start on. Then if we head over here to the left and select create, we've got those different flows that we'd explained when we were explaining what Power Automate is. So as you see, you've got automated Cloudflow, instant Cloudflow, scheduled Cloudflow. You've got that natural language system that we just saw here. So describe it to design it. And as you can see here, you can also start from a template. So this is a really cool feature which Power Automate has included, allowing you to start from pre-built templates to process things that a lot of people are processing. So for example, you can schedule a reply using Teams, you can save a message to OneNote using an instant, so obviously that's a button, and if you scroll down, you've got all of these connectors that you can start from also, and great integration with software such as Jira and Asana. A huge variety of capability here. So if you go into templates, you get that view but more in depth. So you've got a search, you've got a sort, and then you've got all of these sections. So you can look for a template that best suits your needs and automate a process within seconds. If you go over here to the learn section, you've got the Power Automate documentation. So places to get started, to understand what's new. You've got training, and then you've got concepts. So options to troubleshoot. So a lot of different options here if you want to deepen your understanding of Power Automate. And I'll leave this link in the section notes so you can have a look at that. And then you've also got My Flows, where you can see the flows that you've created. Currently we don't have any in this environment, but any flows you create, they'll be stored here. And then you can also create a new flow from this section. So that's an introduction to the suite of Power Automate, and in the next part we'll be going over the PApp project, where we will automate notifications when an inventory item has been added. I'm going to show you how to sign up for a Power Automate trial for free. So for starters, go into the link that I've left in the section notes, or simply type in Power Automate in your search bar and press the first link at the top. When you're there, select try for free, and you should be taken to this screen, and then here you can enter your work or school email address, and they'll check if you need to create an account or if one's already been created for you. And then you can simply follow the steps from here to create your account and confirm your details, and you should be loaded into a Power Automate environment. If you're not loaded into a Power Automate environment, simply go into your browser and type in make.powerautomate.com. and that should let you sign in with the credentials that you signed up with in the previous screen. So now we're introducing the second part of the PApp project. For this step, we're gonna need to automate notifications when an inventory item has been added. So it builds off the first part of the PApp project, where we had an app where users can go in, modify data within the inventory table, and also add data. And here what we want is an email to be sent to me when a new item has been added. So how would we go about creating that? So right now I've opened up the Power Automate suite, and what I'll do is go into create. And in this case, we'll use an automated Cloudflow. Since this is hands off, what it's gonna do is it's gonna look into the inventory table that we created within the Dataverse in the previous part. So we're gonna need an automated Cloudflow. So no human interaction in terms of the flow. And since it's being triggered by an event, this is the type of flow that we're going to use. So if we select here, we give the flow a name, and then we need to choose a trigger for the flow. So what's actually going to set this flow off? So since we created the table in the Dataverse, and just for reference, I'll show you that now. As you can see, the inventory tracking table is built within the Dataverse environment. What we'll need is a Dataverse connector. So if we search Dataverse, when a row is added, modified, or deleted, we'll select that, and then we can select create. So as you can see straight away on the right, it will give us that Copilot experience, but we can close that now. And then we can select this object here in the middle whenever it's added, modified, or deleted. And we have all of these options that are required and that we're gonna have to add. So for starters, change type, so we can choose when the flow is triggered. We want to choose when an item is added. For the table name, we're gonna need to find the table. And then our scope, we can just set this to organization for now. And then we can close this off. So now it's looking for when an item is added to that table, but what should it do after the item is added? So if I select add here, add an action, and we want it to send an email. So if I type in email, you've got the generic mail, and then you've also got the Office 365 Outlook. We're going to use this version 2, send an email. And then obviously here we've got the general format of an email. So who are we sending it to, what's the subject, and what's the body. So it's like sending an email, but it's going to make that template for us. For starters 2, we're just going to use this email that I'm connected to now. Perfect. The subject of the mail, we're just going to type in inventory added, and then we're going to create the template of the email. So what we're actually going to want is we're going to want the data that the user has inputted to add that inventory item into the data source, and we want to pull that data into this email. So we want the name, we probably want the quantity, and we probably want the price. So if I just create a template for those, I'll show you how to bring in that data. So as you can see, we've got those sections for product name, price, and quantity. And what we can use is we can select this lightning bolt here on the right, and this is called dynamic content. So if I select here, it's using the step before, as you can see, when a row is added, modified, or deleted, and giving me options for data that I can use within my email. So as you can see here, we're going to want product name, so we can search for that. We're going to want price, and then we're going to want the quantity of the item that's been submitted by the user. So we've got thank you, and we've got that sorted, so we can collapse this also. We can select save, and then it should give us this nice notification saying that our flow is ready to go. So let's test it. So now we're back into the Power Apps suite. We're going to go into apps, select the app we just created, press play. We can close this, and then we're going to want to add a new item. Submit, and as you can see, the item's been added here. Let's just take a look at that table, make sure it's added into the table also. Yep, there it is. And now if I open up my emails, just perfect timing, you can see inventory added, and the data has been pulled in from the item I just created. So very cool functionality there, and I hope it opens your eyes to the type of things that can be achieved with Power Automate and how complex we can get with this. So now for your action step, I want you to create your first flow that notifies you when you get a negative email. So I'm going to give you a quick hint on how to do this, and then I'm going to let you go off and do it by yourself. So right now I'm in the Power Automate suite within the template section. You can see here on the left, and I've come into the email section and simply looked for negative. And that's given me all of these different templates. So if you get stuck, please take a look at these templates, have a quick understanding of how they work, and then try and make it by yourself. And give it a test and let me know if it works out for you. So in this section, we're going to be covering Power BI. The section objectives are to understand what Power BI is and why it's useful, understand the difference between reports and dashboards, understand the difference between Power BI Desktop and Power BI Service. We're going to introduce the third part of the PUP project, and then you're going to do an action step, which is to create your first report and connect it to the Dataverse. I'd also like to start off by saying you can get very deep with Power BI, and we're going to just scrape the surface here so you understand what it can do in the context of the Power Platform. But if you are looking for a course to really deepen your understanding of Power BI and understand its capabilities to its full potential, then there are many different courses out there, which I can also leave some recommendations in the section notes of courses that I personally found useful when trying to level up some skills in Power BI. I thought I'd leave a notice there. You can get very deep with this software, but yeah, we're just going to be scraping the surface here. What is Power BI? Power BI is a data visualization tool that transforms large data sets from various sources into interactive reports and dashboards. It can help users gain a clear understanding of their data through different visualization tiles. And as you can see at the bottom through the image, the boxes marked in green are tiles. So as you can see, each of these tiles represents a different visualization within Power BI. So Power BI has a few different elements that work together, and these three are the most foundational and the basic ones. So starting from Power BI Desktop, that's a Windows desktop application, so that's downloaded onto your machine, onto your device. Power BI Service, which is a web-based application, so that's accessed through Google or any web browser that you have available. And then the Power BI mobile app was used to only view and share data uploaded to Power BI servers. So usually it's just to access the visualizations, not to really do any data modeling or anything like that. That would be up to Power BI desktop and Power BI service, which we'll get into. So why is Power BI useful? Well, for starters, you can create powerful visualizations, and that can drive data-driven decision-making within your organization. I feel like now more than ever, the world truly understands the power of data and what can be achieved, especially with the introduction of things such as machine learning. So being able to visualize that data and show different stakeholders different reports and dashboards tailored to their needs, you'll be able to make your points much clearer and be able to make confident decisions within your organization. The second point I have on there is seamless collaboration for sharing reports and dashboards. It's very useful for sharing those reports. It's not complicated to share a report. You simply just need someone's email, and to collaborate on building a report is also very easy using Power BI service. And of course, we've got that last point there, seamless integration with Microsoft tools, of course, the Power Platform, so especially Power Apps and Power Automate, but it can also be embedded within Power Pages and many different applications within the Power Platform. So what's the difference between Power BI Desktop and Power BI Service? Power BI Desktop is downloaded on a local computer, so it's downloaded onto your machine, not accessible through the web. It has complete data modeling capabilities, so it's not limited in what it can do. It has compatibility with Python, and it has access to many different data sources. Now, Power BI Service is access on the web, in opposed to downloaded onto your device. It has limited data modeling capabilities, so not as many as Power BI Desktop. It has more collaboration than Power BI Desktop. Reports can't be shared and worked together on through Power BI Desktop. You have to go to Power BI Service for that. And then there's more limited data sources using Power BI Service. So it'd be helpful to think of Power BI Desktop as the place where you can go to kind of model your data, structure it in the way that you need, and then Power BI Service to be the place to share that data and visualize it within your organization. If you want to deepen your understanding of Power BI Desktop and Power BI Service and the difference between the two, I highly recommend this page on the Microsoft documentations, which I will leave in the section notes. So please have a quick read through this. There's a nice visualization here, a more detailed visualization of the differences between Power BI Desktop, Power BI Service, and where they kind of overlap in a few things. Definitely have a quick read of that if you want to deepen your knowledge. So using Power BI, you can create something called reports and something called dashboards. So what's the difference? Well, a report is a detailed presentation of data, usually spanning multiple screens. And dashboards are a summarized visualization of the data, usually in a single screen. So if you think of a report as many different dashboards. So here's a good visualization of how datasets, reports, and dashboards work together within Power BI. As you can see here, you've got your 3 datasets at the bottom. So you've got an Excel one there, you've got an SQL, and those are used to fuel those reports. And then those reports are then subsequently put into dashboards. So someone has a collection of those reports and they can view very easily. So very powerful tools accessible within Power BI. So before I get into this section of the PApp project, I want to show you how you can make your Power BI account for free, so you can follow along with me in what I'm doing. So I've got this link up and it will be linked in this section note. So please take a look at that if you want to sign up for the Power BI free trial. So what you're going to press is try free here in the top right. And what that will do is it will get you to sign in with your Microsoft account. And what you can do is you can follow the process. And what you could do is follow the process that Power BI has from there. So what that's going to be is create a free Microsoft Fabric account, activate the free trial, and then you'll be able to use Power BI on your desktop. So yeah, follow those steps and you can download Power BI and follow along with me. So for the third part of the PApp project, we're going to monitor current inventory levels using a Power BI report. So if you remember that table that we created in the Power App section, what we're going to do now is bring that data into Power BI so we can visualize it in a nicer and more user-friendly format. So when you open up Power BI Desktop, you should be shown this new interface. So what you're going to do is select new report, and then what that will do is it will take you to this screen where you can start adding visualizations and building out your report. So since our data is located in the Dataverse, what we're going to need to do is select Dataverse here to the top. And since I'm signed in with my account, what I'm able to do is go into my environment and I'm able to select the table that I'm looking for. So in this case, it's going to be the inventory management table. And as you can see here, CRBD7 inventory tracking. I can select, it'll give me a preview so I can make sure it's the right one. And as you can see, we've got the ID, created on, created by. It's got all those fields that we need. That's perfect. And if we load that in, we're going to want to import. Now we should see the data in here on the right column. So if I open this drop down, I can see all of the fields associated with that table. So for now, I just want a simple bar chart showing me how much quantity I have, and I want that sum of quantity to be based on the product. So that was easy as just ticking two options there on the right. So if I rename some of these products, I go back into Power Apps and I rename some of these products, going into the table, selecting edit. And instead of product 1 and testing flow, I can just put, there we go, so that data's been updated. And now I'm back in Power BI, I can go up here and press refresh. And now as you can see, it's pulled in those changes that we just made. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this here on the left. So you can see very easy drag and drop. And now I've also noted that I want a pie chart to show me the quantity and the percentage of each product that I have. So here I've got the number, but I also want to see the percentage. So if I select pie chart here from the list of visualizations and bring this over here into the right side, what I'll be able to do is select quantity and product name. And as you can see, that's split out into percentages for me with the product names here on the right. I'll make this a bit bigger, give it a bit more breathing space. There we go. And then I can move this also. And as you just saw there, there's a lot of interactivity with the Power BI report. So if I select rings, you can see it all move between them in a very user-friendly way. So I could just simply select it from the options here, but I also want to add a slicer to be able to do that. So if I come on the right side, select the new version of the slicer, and I want to have it by product name, what I'll be able to do is now I have these set of buttons which I can select what I see. So if I press table, it will show me tables, burgers, belt, rings, and none of them. So it's a great functionality there also. So I'm just going to reformat everything. Now, as I'm sure most of you have realized, here on the right side, you can also see Power Apps and you can also see Power Automate for Power BI. So if I select Power Apps and show you how that functionality works, that might be useful for you to have a good understanding of how it can all click together. So if you remember that app we built in the first part of the PApp project for Power Apps, what we can do now is select this. You get step-by-step instructions of how you can start embedding that Power App into the Power BI control. So for starters, we have to select the fields from the data set that we want to see and use in our app. So in this case, we'll say it's quantity, product name, and then we can choose an app. If I just switch environments, and there it is, the inventory management app. If I select that, press add, go to Power App Studio. So now what I need to do is share it so people can actually access it from Power BI. So I press share and I press everyone. You can see all of the permissions were changed successfully. So that application we built in the first project has been embedded successfully into the Power BI report. So functionality works the same. I can add a new product. For example, if I put test, we'll save that. That'll take us to the success screen. And now we've got test product up here. So if I refresh the report, we've got Power BI test as a new product name embedded, and then we can filter on it, of course, just as we can with everything else. So that's been added to the data source using that Power Apps embed function, and then visualized here on the left using the visualizations from Power BI. So I hope that gives you a good understanding of very simple functionality, but nevertheless useful in Power BI, and a good ability to build your own reports and a good foundation to understand what you can actually do with these different systems. Like I said, if you want to deepen your knowledge and understand Power BI further, there are many different courses that cover that I will leave in the section notes for you to take a look at. So please take a look there, and thanks for joining me for the third part of the PApp project. So welcome to the bonus section, and in this section we're going to go over how I passed Microsoft exams with only 1 week of study. So the section objectives for here are going to be to understand what Microsoft certifications are and their value, understand my method for studying and passing Microsoft exams and eventually getting to certifications. And we've got that final action step, which is to start studying for your PL900 exam, which is the Power Platform Fundamentals certification. So stay tuned for the next part where we go through what Microsoft certifications are. So welcome to the bonus section, and in this section we're going to go over how I passed Microsoft exams with only 1 week of study. So the section objectives for here are going to be to understand what Microsoft certifications are and their value, understand my method for studying and passing Microsoft exams and eventually getting to certifications. And we've got that final action step, which is to start studying for your PL900 exam, which is the Power Platform Fundamentals certification. So stay tuned for the next part where we go through what Microsoft certifications are. So what are Microsoft certifications? So you can complete Microsoft exams to verify your skills and knowledge in a given area. And to get a Microsoft certification, you must complete an exam of sorts, so either theory or practical, which is associated to that specific certification. For example, the PL900 exam measures your knowledge of the Power Platform, while the AZ900 exam tests your knowledge of the whole of Azure. Each of these certifications have designated learning paths for free on the Microsoft website, and it's recommended that you finish and read through all of those learning paths before actually taking the exam. These are completely self-paced and again are free, so please check them out if you have a chance. So right now I'm on learn.microsoft.com. Here you can see on the top left, and we're just going to have a look at this website, see what certifications are available to you. So as you can see, if I scroll down, you've got many different certifications, everything from the fundamentals of 365 to Azure AI Engineer Associate, so that might interest some of you. But if I just come into the search and type in Power Platform, as you can see, all of the associated Power Platform certifications show up. And in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to select here Microsoft Certified Power Platform Fundamentals. And if I scroll down, you've got some details about the certification. You've got some recommended ways to prepare. You've got instructor-led and also self-paced. And the self-paced section is where you're going to see the learning path. And then obviously you've got the exam, which you can schedule depending on your location. But if we look into the learning path, we can see for PL900, we've got essentially the building blocks. So describe the business value, identify the foundational components, describe how to build applications with Microsoft Power Apps, and all the other fundamentals that you need to know. I do highly recommend that you come here and browse the credentials and certifications that you could get, and you can also start to construct mentally kind of the learning path to where you want to be. As you can see, if I type in Power Platform again, we've got 3 different levels of certification. So we've got fundamentals, which is 1 star, associate, which is 2 stars, and expert here in the bottom, which is 3 stars. So you can kind of have a designated learning path to where you want to be. So again, highly recommend you check this out, and I'll leave this in the section notes. So why are Microsoft certifications useful? So I've got some statistics up there on the right to illustrate how useful certifications can be. As you can see here, you've got 91% of certification candidates who earned a credential are more confident in their abilities. So obviously deepening your knowledge, reading up on the theory behind what you're actually doing will give you greater confidence in what you can do. You've also got 77% of certified candidates being able to innovate better after earning certification. So a more deeper or robust knowledge of what you're doing will allow you to create more innovative solutions that solve more problems. And then there on the right, which is quite an important statistic and a huge reason why people get Microsoft certifications, and it's because 66% of IT managers said employees with IT certifications produce higher quality work. So I think to summarize in the 2 key points of why Microsoft certifications are so useful is they give you more confidence in your ability and your power to innovate within your company, solving business problems quicker. And Microsoft certifications also provide greater opportunities. You stick that on your CV or your LinkedIn profile, you're going to stick out. You are simply going to stick out against someone who doesn't. So it's a great way to stand out in that sense. So there's a lot of information there, and I'm sure you're asking the question, where do I start? So if I was you, the first thing I would do is browse the available credentials and certifications that you can actually take on learn.microsoft.com. So I'll take you to that website now. So right here, I'm on learn.microsoft.com. I've got a search bar on the top where I can search through things. You've got all of these different links, view documentation, and what we're interested in here is get certified. Now, if I select this, you've got the Microsoft credentials section. You've got Microsoft Applied Skills, which is their new initiative to promote certifications by actually doing work. So they provide you use cases and you actually have to do the work. It's not just theory, it's practically completing something. For example, to get a Canvas app certification for Applied Skills, you're actually going to have to do some tasks within a Canvas app rather than just know how to do those tasks and answer multiple choice questions. Some people think that's better. I think a good mix between theory and practical is always good. So I'm all for the Microsoft Applied Skills. But right now, if we scroll to the certifications, select Browse Certifications. Coming back to the screen, we've got all of these different options of the certifications that we can do. So I'd have a good look in here, see if there's anything that attracts you, anything you like specifically, and try and designate a learning path to how you're going to get to the end. So click onto one of these exams. For example, if I press Azure AI Engineer Associate, I can scroll down, see the overview, see if it attracts me, see if it's something that will be beneficial to my work, and then I can scroll down and take the course if I need to. So again, highly recommend going to Microsoft Learn and taking a look at the certifications. Now the second point I've got on here is to have a read of my post to get ahead. So I've actually released something on my blog at howdenrashid.com. I'll leave it somewhere on the screen so you can see it. So I'm now on my website, and if I scroll down, I've got that blog post here. And it's an 11-minute read, so quite lengthy, but I did really put a lot of effort into trying to get everything on here that I thought would be beneficial for people starting. So if I scroll down to the table of contents, you've got different stages that you can take, different resources that I recommend, as well as giving you some possible learning paths that you could take depending on what you want to be. So definitely have a read through there, and if you like it, please subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Please stay tuned for the next section where I'm actually going to show you my method that I use to pass Microsoft exams with only a week of study. So for you busy people out there, please stay tuned for that. So the method breaks down in 4 simple steps. So in step 1, I'm going to show you the prerequisites, so what you're going to need. Step 2, you're going to set up your study environment so you can actually get started studying. Step 3, you're going to create your study material so you have something to study from. And step 4, you're actually going to start studying. So I'll give you some advice on how you can do that the most practically and efficiently. So starting with step 1, the prerequisites. So what are you going to need? So to get started, you're going to need these 3 things. The first thing is a free note-taking software. So anything that lets you make digital notes. If you want to write them on paper, feel free, but I highly recommend taking them digitally. It's just quicker and you're less likely to lose them. So my personal favorite is Notion, but you've got Evernote, or you can even use Google Docs if you want. Then the second point on there is Microsoft Learn material. So this is free on Microsoft website, but you're going to need it to actually study the material for your exams. So yeah, keep that open in a tab. And the third thing you're going to need is Anki, which is a flashcard app. This is free on the web or £20 in the App Store, which is really a good investment to make for all of your Microsoft exams. A Microsoft exam on average costs about £120, or I think it's about $180. So paying this initial £20 up front will stop you from having to repeat an exam and pay that fixed amount again. So I highly recommend making this investment. Why Anki specifically? I know there's other free flashcard apps out there. I like Anki's freedom to create flashcards, so you can make flashcards any way you like. It's not just word based. You can add images, you can add blocks, you can add audio, anything along those lines that help you learn, you can add it to those flashcards. Also, Anki uses something called spaced repetition. So every time you open a flashcard, you can dictate how well you've done on the flashcard, if it was easy, if it was hard, if it was somewhere in the middle. And what that will do is it will go through Anki's algorithm to understand when it should show you the flashcard next. And spaced repetition is really the best way to learn, in my opinion, or at least the best way to retain information. I'm not sure if you'll find it the same, but Anki definitely helps me with this a lot. So now you've got what you need, it's time to get started. And step 2 is setting up your study environment. I do want to say firstly, if you want a written copy of this guide, it's currently on my website with the blog titled How I Passed Microsoft Exams with Only 1 Week of Study. And if I scroll down, you can see I've got the method, all the different steps, and all of that's in writing. So if you prefer a written version, please take a look at that. I'm going to be using this as a reference while I create this video, so it's quite thorough and I highly recommend it to even use it as a companion. So as you can see here, step 1 is to set up your study environment. So for this step, we're going to need to create 2 different sections in our digital note-taking software, whether it's Notion or Google Docs. In this case, I'm going to use Notion because it's got some features I like. So one of the sections is a study guide. So that's going to be the exam specifications or the criteria that we're going to need to hit to pass. And then the second section is going to be where your flashcards live. That's where you're going to be creating your study material that you'll use to develop your knowledge. So let's start off by creating these 2 sections. So right now I'm in Notion and I've just created a page. Now Notion's got this feature called databases. So if I create a database, essentially it's just 2 separate sections and I turn that into a list. What I can do is I can create a section called study guide and then create another one called flashcards. So as you can see, each of these sections open a dedicated page, so I can separate the two. So now I'm sure you're wondering what actually goes into your study guide. How do I know what I have to hit to pass the exam? And for that, we're going to need to open up the certification details screen. So here I'm on the PL900 Microsoft Certified Power Platform Fundamentals certification. That was a mouthful. And if I scroll down and see the skilled measured link, every exam has one. I can select this. It's going to bring me a documentation. As you can see, it's for every exam. And essentially, it's going to tell you what skills are measured within the exam. So if I scroll down, for starters, what we're going to take is this skills at a glance section. So what I'm just going to do is take this and I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to paste it in my note-taking tool. And it's pasted nicely for me there. Now, essentially what the skills at a glance section is all the topics and their weightings in the exam. For example, describe the business value of the Microsoft Power Platform. So that's 20 to 25% of the exam covered around this topic. So that's a huge part in comparison to something like demonstrate the capabilities of Power Pages, which is only 1 to 5%. So that can just be a question or even two, but nothing more than that. So I know retrospectively that I'm going to have to focus my efforts more on this top one than the Power Pages topic here at the bottom. So that's why skills at a glance section is really good to have, especially if you're under time constraints or have a deadline. I highly recommend getting this in so you know where to focus all of your efforts. So now we've got the skills at a glance section. Now I'm back in the documentation for the Microsoft exam. And as you can see, all of those skills at a glance, all of those main topic headings have subheadings under them of what those topics essentially measure. For example, describe the business value of the Microsoft Power Platform. That doesn't really tell me much, but describe the value of Microsoft Power Apps, describe the value of Microsoft Power Automate, describe the value of Microsoft Power BI. Now we're getting more specific. So if I go back to my note-taking tool, what I like to do is Notion has this toggle feature, so I can do this and then take all of these, just make them go under. So now I've got that little toggle just to keep things cleaner. And then what I can do is take this section and all the ones under it and simply just copy and paste. So I'm going to take them all the way to the end. There we go. We're going to copy this. And then we're going to paste them in here. So now I've got all of those sections here. I want to separate all of the main topics and the subtopics from each other. So we've got a main topic here. If I scroll down, we've got another main topic here. So we'll separate that. We'll separate it by a couple. Scroll down. Another main topic. Separate. Awesome. So now we've got all the topics that are going to be measured within the exam. And essentially, now we've got the study guide. What we're going to want to do to know we're ready is essentially just tick these off as we learn them. So as soon as I learn what the value of Microsoft Power Apps is to build applications, and I've got that written in a flashcard, and I can go into my flashcard app and trust that that topic is going to be covered, I can double click here in Notion and press strike through, and then in my eyes that's complete. So it doesn't matter what note-taking tool you're using, as long as you can strike through or put a tick beside it, that's completely fine. As long as you know that you've covered it, so then you know what else you need to hit and what gaps of your knowledge you need to fill. So now we've set up our study environment with the study guide complete and also a place to store our flashcards. Now we can move into the next step, step 3, which is to create your study material. So stay tuned for the next part. So now we've got our study environment set up and we've got a place to enter those flashcards. Now we can actually start building out those flashcards. So that brings us to step 3, which is to create your study material. So right now I'm in the PL900 certification details screen. I'm going to scroll down to the recommended learning section, which here is this collection of Microsoft Power Platform fundamentals. I'm going to select start on the first one. I've got the introduction, the learning objectives. I'll just move on to another unit. And then I've got my content to start studying through there. Now what I like to do when I'm studying is split my screen. So I like to take this tab, move it over to the left, and then I can select another tab here. So in this case, it's going to be Notion because that's my digital note-taking tool. And then I'm going to open up my flashcard section, make that full screen. I can kind of readjust like this, and then I can start building up my flashcards. So here I'm going to utilize Notion's toggle feature to understand where the flashcards are coming from, what the questions are, what the answers are. So I like to put the learning path name at the top, and the way to get the learning path name is if I just press the unit here, I can come here. It says describe the business value of the Microsoft Power Platform. I'll just paste that in. And then now all of the flashcards I get from this section, I know belong to this specific section. And I can even reuse them for other exams if I want to. Then I'm going to use the toggle feature again and then write my question. So in this case, it's going over Power Apps. So I'm going to ask myself the question, what is Power Apps? And then now I can write the answer below. And just like that, I've got my first flashcard built. And what I would do is go through, ask myself questions. So what is Power Automate? What is AI Builder? What is Dataverse? Like this, put the answer under them, and then that gets them ready to be put into the flashcard app, which in this case is Anki. So to summarize, it's a good idea to split your screen, have on one side the learning material and then on the other side the digital note-taking tool you're using, and then write your flashcards in this way. So now what we're going to do is transfer those flashcards into Anki, so our flashcards app, so then we can keep them on us and we can take a look at them when we're waiting in line for a coffee or anything, or to just kill some time. It's just easier to have it on your phone because we always keep our phones with us. So what I'm going to do is open up Anki on one side, same here as I have on the picture, and then on the other side have the note-taking tool. And now I've opened up the Anki app, and as you can see, it's basically all Microsoft certifications and then my poor attempt at learning Portuguese. So I just select PL200 for now, and then I press add here at the top. It opens me up this screen. I've got the front and then I've got the back, and creating your flashcards is as simple as this. So now I've got all my flashcards written on the left. What I can do is just copy the question, put it on the front, copy the answer, put it on the back. Just like that. Now in this deck I've got duplicates of it, obviously. You can just ignore that because in your deck it will be new, but because I've opened up the PL200 deck, I probably have another flashcard that's asking me what Power Apps is. So let me just put 2 question marks. And then that will go away. And then I just press add, and then that will be added to the deck, and that will be taken into Anki's algorithm, and I can kind of trust that that topic is going to come up for me as long as I open up the app and actually study my flashcards. So that's pretty much it for step 3. It's really the process of creating those flashcards and then getting them into the flashcard app for your study. And in the next part, I'm going to give you some practical advice when you do start studying, how to maximize your chances and guarantee that you pass your Microsoft exam. So stay tuned for that. So the 4th and final step to this method is to start studying. So this is the process of actually getting on your phone or getting on the Anki website or whatever flashcard app that you decided to use and studying those flashcards. But what can you use to supplement those studies so you can increase your chances of passing the exam? So again, I'm back on my website because I've got a lot of resources here, and the first point I've got here at the top is exam cram YouTube videos. So one of my personal favorites is John Saville's series in which he goes over exam cram videos. So this really got me through the first Microsoft credential I've ever done, which is the AZ900, the Azure Fundamentals, which I highly recommend for everyone interested in any sort of Microsoft technology. And these videos are amazing. He just crams through all of the knowledge that you need to know, and it really does help having someone explain them to you. So I highly recommend watching his series. Also, I've got a disclaimer up here just before I go through any more. The below should only supplement your reading, not replace it. Please do follow the other steps that I discuss because they're very important to deepen your knowledge and make sure that your knowledge is cemented in your head. So when you do take the actual exam, you're not struggling and you don't lose your money at the end. And then the second point here is I've got Microsoft free practice assessments. So each exam on the Microsoft Learn website, if I just open it up here, just going to back out into the certification details screen. So here I'm on the PL900. And if I scroll down, I've got practice assessments. Now, if I select this, it's going to prompt me to sign in, so I'm not going to do it now. But if you select this, it's going to bring up a free environment of multiple choice questions, essentially a practice assessment. And these are quite beneficial. It gives you an idea of the kind of questions that might come up. And it also gives you a nice report at the end, dictating kind of what you're weaker at and what you're stronger at, so you know what you can target. So I take this practice assessment a few days before, the exam cram videos as well, a few days before, just to supplement the reading you've already done and really cement that knowledge. I promise if you do all the steps I discussed and these 2 things, you are 99% certain to pass your Microsoft exam. It does take effort. This isn't a shortcut, but this is the best way to guarantee results, in my opinion. So that concludes step 4 and therefore the method, which is to start studying. And that builds us a really nice bridge into the next slide, which is the action step, and that is to start studying for your PL900 exam. If you want to strengthen your fundamental knowledge of the Power Platform, this is the best place to start. And procrastination isn't doing anyone any good, so what are you waiting for? Start studying for your PL900 exam. And thank you for sticking with me in this bonus section. I hope you found it useful. Hello everyone, how are you doing? Today I'm so excited to be working with Plumsail to bring you this tutorial in how to integrate some of their systems with the Power Platform. So as I'm sure you've gone through this course, you've seen the power of the Power Platform. It gives you a lot of capability, right? But the truth is, it does have its limitations, especially when you're trying to get data into the system with people who might not have access to your Power Platform environment. So if you think about external users and those sorts of things. So what Plumsail allows us to do basically is it gives us two pieces of technology to basically integrate with the Power Platform. So you get the power of Power Automate, and then you get the power of Plumsail as well. So you can kind of bring those two together, and it basically allows you to integrate all of those systems and bring in your data into your database. So what we've got is a use case, and what this tutorial will show you to do is bring in data, invoice and order data using Plumsail forms, so that will come into the system. Then we're going to use Power Automate to embed that system into the Dataverse, so the database native to the Power Platform. And then we're going to use something called Plumsail Documents to automatically generate an invoice based on that data that's been integrated using Plumsail forms. So we've kind of got a three-stage process there. So we've got Plumsail forms coming in, putting the data into the Dataverse. Then we've got Plumsail documents, which takes that data and creates us an invoice and generates that automatically. So it takes a lot of the manual process out of, firstly, putting the data into your database in the first place, and then going and creating an invoice after. So it kind of automates all that for you, and it's very hands-off. So there's a lot of benefits to this. In general, it's the consistency of the way your invoices would look, and of course saving time and being more efficient. So Plumsail have some really cost-effective resources that you can use on their website, and the link will be in the description so you can check that out. And again, a huge thank you to Plumsail for sponsoring this tutorial. Okay, so let's get started by coming in to Microsoft Edge. So now we're in here, I'm in my Power Platform environment, but we're not going to start here. What we're going to do is we're going to come in here and type in Plumsail forms. If we scroll down here, we'll select the first link, and that should take us to our site. You can see they've got a really cool website, and you can get all of the details of what Plumsail forms can do. But what we're going to do is we're just going to go into my account, and then we're going to sign in. Please don't make me do multi-factor authentication. That would be great. Please don't. Okay. Amazing. So here we can choose the product. So as I've mentioned, we'll be using a combination of Plumsail forms and Plumsail documents. But let's start with the form. So if we come into the left-hand side here and come into forms, you can see I've already got an order request form, which I've been testing with. But up in here, what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this. So if I select edit, you can see we've got the order request form that's already been established. So we've used the left-hand side fields here and basically brought them over here onto the form. So what we can do now is create a new form. So we'll come into here, select save as new, and you can see it's created a copy of that form. So we'll just create this and call this version 2. Amazing. So We Love Coffee Limited is a company that loves coffee apparently, and what they want to do is they want to get people to come into this form, fill in their details, and then that needs to be sent to the Dataverse. So users can come in here and they have the option to order coffee. So if I save this and then preview it, you should be able to see some of the logic we've got powered here. So it will ask if you're a new client. If we select yes, it will ask you to enter your company details, and then you can put the order details for the coffee. So we've got coffee, more coffee, or substantial amounts of coffee, and you can see that's calculating a column here. If they're not a new client and they're instead an existing client, what we've got is we've got a field here that connects back to our Dataverse. So if I click onto this, you can see that these are actually live records from the Dataverse. So Fourth Coffee, AdventureWorks, these are records that we have stored within our accounts table. And then it's basically taking those records in and then feeding it into this field. Now, how's it doing that? Well, if I come into Plumsail and I go into the native JavaScript feature, as you can see, I've got some JavaScript written here to fuel that form. And then you can see this function here at the top is actually what's handling that field. So you can see it's calling an Azure function, and then it's basically accessing that account table through and then processing those records to the account fields. If you'd like to understand how to actually do that, it won't be covered in this tutorial, but there's a link in the description that you can check out. And if you click on that link, it will take you to the tutorial showing you step by step how you can do that. But just to explain this code a little bit so you can understand what's going on. So we're just using some JavaScript with the built-in functionality to basically show and hide fields. So that's what this function is doing. And then you can see it's actually updating the calculated amount. So if you remember, if we come into preview, and let's say here at the bottom we've got our coffee choices, you can see it's updating the amount so the user can see how much that they're going to be charged, and that's what that other function is doing. So if I save this, and let's say we're happy with this form, and this is what the order request form will look like, and this is what the client will fill out, what I can do is I can come into Power Apps, and then I'll go into my solution, and then if I create a new solution, and I just call this Plumsail integration, you can see I've been testing this, version 2, and then we'll select the publisher, Power Academy, and then we'll create that solution. So why are we doing this? So when you're creating within the Power Platform, I think we mentioned it in the course as well, you want to be building in your solutions. Now this reduces the risk of having dependencies, and when you're taking those solutions and putting them through UAT and production use, they will all be contained, and nothing will get left behind basically. And now we've got our solution open, what we're going to do is we're going to add the components that we're going to need to make this solution click. So if I come into add existing and then table, we will add the invoice table, we will add the account table. So we'll add the invoice and the account table, we'll select next, we will remove any dependencies, and then we can add these. And you should see them show up here on the left hand side navigation. Okay, perfect, we've got these. And then what we'll also do is we'll add our model driven app, which is the account manager CRM. And this is just to manage the accounts and the invoices. So if I come into here and actually preview it, and then now we've got the accounts manager open, you can see the list of accounts that you can see in the Plumsail forms, and then also an invoice. We've only got one here, but you can see the list of invoices as well. So now we've got the components that we need within the solution. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new cloud flow. So to do that, come into new, automation, cloud flow, and then automated cloud flow. Now we want all of this to trigger on the point where the Plumsail form is submitted. So lucky for us, Plumsail have a connection built into the Power Platform. So if I just type in Plumsail, there it is. You should see it. So we're going to use the form is submitted, and then we're going to just add a name, Plumsail invoice automation, and then version 2. And then we'll just create. Amazing. So now when I select this drop down, we should see the list of the forms. If you're doing this for the first time, it might ask you to authenticate, but you should see the list of the forms here. So you can see order request form version 2, and that's the one we're going to be using. Okay, so let's build out this Power Automate flow. So firstly, we're going to need a condition, and what this condition will do, and I'll show you in a second. So we'll just come in here and type condition, and you can see it will split the flow out for us. But if we come into the order request form, and I'll just close these tabs for now, you can see the first question it asks, and if I save this and preview it, it's, are you a new client? So what we need is we need the flow to understand if this person is a new client or they're an existing client. So this flow will only handle existing clients, and then we can create another one for new clients. But for the purposes of this tutorial, we'll just do it for existing clients. So are you a new client must equal no. Now, this is what I love about Plumsail and Power Automate in general. If I come into here, you can see I've got dynamic content. So from here, I've basically got access to all of the fields within my Plumsail form. So if I come into here and select, what is the field name called? We can come into Plumsail and check. It's called, are you a new client? There we go, very creative. Are you a new client is equal to no. So that's the condition we need for this Power Automate to run. Now, if are you a new client is equal to yes, so what happens if it equals yes, what we're going to do is we're going to add a terminate action here. So it's also terminate control, I should say, and then the status will be cancelled, and then that's kind of the right side done. So then we can save the Power Automate flow just to make sure nothing breaks. Okay, so that's the first step. So if we come into that flow and just see the way the user will fill out the form. So let's say, okay, are you a new client is equal to no. Then it's going to ask for their company name. So what we need to do is basically match the company name that they select to the record in Dynamics. So what do I mean by that? If I come into my solution, and what I'll do is I'll just show you the accounts table. If I come into accounts, you can see that I've got my list of accounts here. And if I type in accounts, you can see there's the account field as well. And what this is it gives me the GUID. So every field that's included with a table has a unique identifier, and usually that unique identifier is under the name of what the table is. So this is the account table, so the unique identifier column is called account. What we need to do is we need to match the value that the user selects from here to one of these accounts. So take the value the user selected and match it to one of the accounts that we have within the system. So how do we do that? If I come into my Power Automate flow, we're going to use one of my favorite actions, which is list rows. And we're going to use the Dataverse premium action. And then we're going to choose the accounts table because that is the row that we're looking for. And now what we're going to do is we're going to come to the filter rows section. So what we need to do is use the field that the user has populated in the form and then try and map it to the account that's within our system. So take the name from the form and put it in the system. I think I've said that a few times, but hopefully it's sunk in now. So how do we do this? So we use something called an OData style filter expression. So I'll show you how we can do that. But first what we need is we need the name of the GUID column within the account table. So if I come into here and select edit column, advanced options, you can see the logical name is found here. So we'll just copy that. Come into Power Automate and paste it, and you can see we've got the logical name, so that's good. So account ID, and then this is the where the OData comes in, so equals, and then we need the account field. So what's the account field name? If I just close the preview, come into this, it's just called account. Amazing. So equals, and then we can use the dynamic field account. Amazing. And then we can save that. Now, let me show you something about the list rows action. So for example, it's found the account and we can use that as dynamic data for the next action, right? So for example, if I just put a compose in here and I want to get the output of the list rows. So I come into list rows and I say, get me the description. Boom, you can see it's put it into a loop. Now, why has it done that? Well, the list rows action, this kind of gives it away by what it's called, is a plural action. So it will basically give you a collection of things rather than just one thing. So this is a bit of a hack that I like to do. So let's delete this. This can go away. And instead we're going to use the get row by ID. So we're still going to need the list rows, but then this will basically filter it down to only give us one item. And then the way that we can filter this is we'll put the table name to account, the same as we did with the list rows, and then we're going to add a unique expression. So from here, we're going to use first. I love this expression. So it's basically getting the first item from that list, which is only one item, but you know, it still reads it as a collection. So it's getting the first item from that list, and then we'll come to dynamic content. And then we want the value, so a list of items, and if we just move right, and then we need the name of the column that we want to return, and in this case we want the GUID, so it'll be the account ID. So account ID. So if you remember the account ID from the account field here, the unique identifier, that's the account that we're going to want to pull through. So if we select OK, and then what we're going to do is we're going to save this. Okay, amazing. So now we've got this. So now I want to test it so you can see what it's outputting. I always like to do these check-ins to make sure that we actually know what we're doing rather than just following it kind of step by step. So if I go into test and then manually, and then I come into Plumsail, I save. I'm just going to do a hard refresh. So I'll just do a Control F5 there. And then if I select preview, let's go down that field. So we are a new client. We'll say our company is Fourth Coffee, and we'll say, I just want more coffee, and then we'll select submit. And you'll see a thank you for submitting the form. And if I go into Power Automate, you should see that working now. So the flow is run successfully. If I come into here, you can see it's run down the true lane. It's found the account ID for the unique identifier. It's got that row by the ID, and you can see the output is the account name of Fourth Coffee. So that's the one we selected. So we're on the right track. Cool. Okay, amazing. So this is coming along really nicely. Now I want to show you another cool feature that Plumsail Forms has, which is the integration with Excel. Now if I come into the option choices, but you can see that I've connected it here to Excel, and you can see it's connected to a specific file, a table, and it's also passing through a text column and a value column. So what is it doing? Let me show you. I'm just going to open up that Excel sheet. Cool. So you can see it's connected to this list of Excel, it's connected to this Excel table. So you've got the name and then you've got the value. So why are we doing this? Well, Plumsail will pass this value as a text field, but what we need it to do is we need it to store as an actual number field. That's just because of the way that Dataverse actually handles choices. So if you've had experience with Dataverse choices, and if I come into here and go to, no, we're going to need the invoice table. And if I come into item and I just look at that column name and I go to edit choice, you can see that we've got specific values relating to that choice. So we've got this number, and this number. And what I've done is I've mapped it to the Plumsail values. So basically, when it gets passed through into the Power Automate flow, it's passing through as a value, making it easier to map to one of those choices, right? So that's why I really like Plumsail for this Power Platform integration. It's because it's very welcoming of these choice fields, which are absolutely essential within your Dataverse tables. Okay. So now you know how that works. I just thought I'd mention it because you're going to see me do some cool stuff with that now. So if I just go into the history of that flow, so if I just come into details here and I go into the run history, just so we can see the way that Plumsail's passed it for us. You can see it's passed coffee choices, but it's passed it as a string. That's why you can see these speech marks basically around it, because it's passed it as a string. But those Dataverse choices are actually supposed to be integers. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the value from a string to an integer, and I'll show you how to do that now. So we come back into editing, and what we're going to do is open up that condition, and we're going to go into a compose action. So this is one of my favorite ones. And basically what we're going to do is we're just going to come into expressions, int. So interactive, you guys. I love the way that you can just pull these values through, and we'll scroll down and it's coffee choices. So we'll just do that, and then we'll select OK, and then now this is going to turn that string into an integer. So let me show you that. If I just automatically run this again, you should see that turning into an integer. That's been successful. Condition, compose, you can see it's turned into an integer. So that has worked into our favor as well. So what is the next step? So obviously in Plumsail, we are passing all of these details through. So we've got the coffee choices, and then we've got the amount for existing accounts. So what we need is we need to pass this data into our invoice table. So to do this, what we're going to do is we'll just close that panel, and we'll actually come back into Power Automate, add an action, and then add a new row. And then we're going to use this add a new row action, which is a Dataverse connection, and then we'll go to invoices. So we're going to actually create that record into our invoice table. There we go. And then you can see we've got a few aspects here. Okay, so for invoice number, just for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm just going to use the random function, which I really like. So we'll say it's between 1000 and that number. Cool. So that's just going to generate an invoice number between those numbers, basically. The next thing we need to do is we need to create a relationship from that invoice to the account. And that's basically so the invoice is associated to the account that's actually created this. So the way we do this is we have a bit of a strange syntax that I tend to forget often. But the way you do it is you do a slash and then the table name, which is account, but it needs to be plural. So accounts, open up those brackets. And then if we come into dynamic content, scroll down. And if you remember, we need the get row by ID, because if we use the list rows, it's going to put that into a loop, and we don't want the loop. So if we come into the unique identifier for the account, should be here somewhere. There it is. It's just called account. And then we'll pass that through. That should then create an invoice, give us an invoice number, and relate that to the account that purchased the coffee. So let's just save that so it doesn't go away. And now I'm just going to fill out some of these fields. So for invoice state, we'll just use the UTC now. And then we'll select OK. For the item, what we'll do is we'll select the show options, enter a custom value, and we'll take the outputs from the compose, which is where we turned it into an integer. So that should work fine. And then the total amount will be this amount field that's calculated already for us within Plumsail. So if I just go into amount, select this, and then we can save. Amazing. So let's break what this flow is doing down. So it's first submitting, triggering when the form is submitted. It's checking if they are an existing client. So are you a new client is equal to no. So they are an existing client. They'll run down here. Then we find the account. Then we get the single account. We compose the choice from a string to an integer. And then we create a new row within the invoices. So we've kind of run through that side of our process. So if you come to the invoice table, so we'll come to solutions here, you can see we've got a field for invoice attachment. So we need a way to actually generate an invoice and then attach it to the specific record. And the way that we do this is using Plumsail documents. So let me show you how to do that now. So if I come into Plumsail documents, I'll scroll down and select this, come into my account, and then you can see we can choose a product. So we'll choose Plumsail documents and we'll just close that. You can see that we've got these two that I've been testing on, but what we'll do is we'll select add process and we'll start from a template, but you can also start from blank, so you can create your own documents. Okay, so we'll just start from a template. Amazing. And then we'll just select the basic invoice template. So we'll use that. We'll call the process name invoice generator version 3. And then you can see we've got these kind of choices and it will show us what the template will look like. So we can just select next. Amazing. And then now we're on here. So there's quite a bit going on here, but I'll try and break it down for you. So you see these are what Plumsail documents refer to as tokens. So basically what we can do is we can pass the data that's been filled out in the Dataverse table. So if we come back into the solution here, we can pass this data through and then basically generate an invoice using that data. So we don't have to create the invoice using a PDF or anything like that. It will do it for us and it will store that attachment against that invoice that was created. So let me show you how that works within Power Automate. But before we do that, I'm just going to change one of these tokens. So you can see a bit of a difference in the tokens. You can see these kind of curly braces you've got here, and then you've got this @ here as well. So that means it will automatically generate a token, but we've already got an invoice number in the system. So what I can do is I can edit online. And we'll just wait for that to load, and it will open in Google Docs, which is really cool. And we'll just take that @ out, and then that will give us what we need. And you can see it's automatically saving. And then we can select save and next. Amazing. So we will use the testing. No, we don't want that. Yeah, we want to use the template mode as testing, and then we'll call the output name as, we'll just call it invoice. And then we've got the output name as well that I've just named to invoice, but you can also use some of the tokens here. So if you could just go to like invoice number, you can just call it like the dynamic invoice number that it's been saved as. So if we select save and next, you can see that you can also add a delivery, so it can be emailed automatically as well, but we'll skip this for our use case, so that won't be necessary. And we can just select start process. So now what's really cool is if I come into Power Automate, Plumsail also have a connection for this as well. So it's called start a document generation process, I think. Yeah, Plumsail documents. And if we scroll down to the bottom, start document generation process. So we'll just select that. It will give us the process name that we need. So in this case, we will select invoice generator version 3. And then you can see the dynamic tokens have appeared here, and you can pass them through as JSON. So if you remember, and we come back into Plumsail and we select configure template, you will see company, address, phone, email, date, number. That's all available to us through here. So you can see we can pass that data that's been created and we can generate that invoice automatically. So let's do that now. So from add a new row, we will use invoice number, date, invoice date, company. We can take the company from the get row by ID. So we can just do the account name, the address, phone. So we're taking all of this from the account. Main phone. Yep, that's fine. And then the email as well. So we're passing all of that data from the existing account. So from the products, what we're going to do is we're going to pass through the item that was added. So if we go to item, we'll select the item, and then from here, the amount. So we'll just come into total amount that's added on that new row. And then we'll just select save. Okay, that's amazing. So now we've got all of that done. Now what we want to do is we want to save the document that was generated against that invoice record. So there's an action for that within Dataverse. So if I just come into Microsoft Dataverse, I should be able to find it. I think it's called add a file. Yes, upload a file or image. So we will upload that to the invoice. So if I come into invoice and then the row ID, the row ID will be the invoice that was created. So if I just type in invoice, it'll be the unique identifier for the invoices. Choose a column, invoice attachment. Okay, amazing. So the column name is invoice attachments. The content will be the result file. So that's actually what the invoice will be. And then the content name, we can just make that the invoice number. So if I come in here, we've got everything created. We've got everything finished. And I select test and I select manual and select test. We'll run through the flow. So are you a new client? No. Our company name will be Blue Yonder Airlines, and we want substantial amounts of coffee. So we'll select submit. We'll see how that's working in the Power Automate flow. Hopefully it'll all be green ticks, and then we can go and see how that looks within our app. As you can see, it's running the condition. It started the document generation process, and then it's attached that document to our record. So if I come into invoices here, select refresh, you can see it's been created. And if I open that up, select this, you can see it's downloaded an invoice. And if I open that file up and select Word, you can see that that's been created for us. So we've got the date and time, we've got the customer, we've got the address, the name, we've got the email, the number, and then we've also got the total amount and the product that was created. So that's been all from me. I just want to say again, another huge thank you to Plumsail. I've been using their product for a little while now, and when I was at my previous companies, it was the best choice for integration with the Power Platform. So you saw how dynamic that was. If you want to check out Plumsail before actually investing in it, you can try in some of their products below. I've added some of the links so you can go and check them out. They're great guys, great support, and I can't recommend them enough. So yeah, huge thank you to them for making this kind of content possible and allowing it for me to be free, which has been absolutely incredible. And hopefully you've learned a little bit more about Power Automate, Dataverse, and now an external integration being Plumsail. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you. Bye.